so many things to thank Dean for. We're just going to thank Dean. Thanks to Laura Newton and Jane Springer for a lot of work they did on the book. Thanks to Wendy for writing the book. That's my job. I'm supposed to be up here telling you things. And Dean, because, you know, Dean is like the dean of things. He wants me to remember to tell you to turn off your cell phone. It's like, I was thinking about, you know, these are grown-ups, you know? And then I thought, I know, my students don't know you're supposed to turn off your cell phones, and then there's us who will forget to turn off our cell phones. So I don't know if there's a middle ground anymore, you know? My cell phone has a particularly annoying song on it. It says, "We are family." I thought that would be so cute. You know when it goes off, it's like, it's incredibly embarrassing. But it is my family when it goes off. So anyway, my job is to welcome everybody here. And as you can see, if you have a program, that there's about 900 readers. And everybody, everybody who knows Wendy, loves Wendy, that's in this room. And everybody's probably familiar with many of the readers, and then of course some of the readers we're not familiar with. And Dean and I were trying to figure out what we could do, and are we going to have a 9-page bio on the brochure? And we're not. So we're going to move quickly, and when the readers come up, they're going to more or less introduce themselves and say, why they're here, what it is about Wendy Bishop, and that brings them to this room. So my first and most immediate job is to say I'm Rick Campbell, which would have been good to say 5 minutes ago, the editor of Van Hinger Press. And then I'm going to welcome and introduce Ralph Berry, who's going to come up as the chair of the English department, and another really good friend of mine, and say something. And then I'm going to come back for a minute and bring Dean up, and then Dean's running the show, right? Okay. Okay, thanks. Ralph Berry, please.
Wendy and I arrived at Florida State University almost exactly at the same time. It was about 1 year apart. Part of the thing that I wanted to do for Rick tonight and for this audience is to say something about the lasting impression she's left on not just individuals, but a whole institution, as well as those people who embody that institution. There are three things that I'm especially aware of now that I'm chair of the department in which she was a member for 18 years. The first one has to do with memory. One of the astonishing things, if you are a teacher, is both the fact that students can often remember you forever. It is a quite remarkable thing, the depth of connection that can exist between a student and a teacher. In many ways, it rivals or comes close to the sorts of relationships that are embodied in institutions like marriage or like family, such things as that. But it's also quite astounding, especially from the standpoint of an institution, how quickly you can be forgotten. This is something that is bracing to learn when you become part of an institution. You feel as though you are so much a part of it, and then one day you walk out and you discover, to your astonishment, it can operate without you, and that it operates often as though it hardly noticed your absence. One of the things that marks the English department at FSU with regard to Wendy is the extent to which she is, not in merely a figurative sense, but in a literal sense, still there. It's been 4 years, almost 4 years, since Wendy left us. And during that period, we still use her book in all of the freshman writing courses that we teach. The curriculum for that freshman writing curriculum was created by Wendy, and the people who run it were trained by Wendy. We still have their students in our program And here's the interesting thing. Although we've now hired 3 faculty members in the rhetoric and composition program, none of whom were here when Wendy was here, they all 3 know who Wendy was. And the program today, not only when it's following in her footsteps, but even when it's trying to depart from, is very much in dialogue with Wendy. There is a sense in which her memory is institutionally embodied in a material and lasting way, in a way that I will just tell you, as the person who is running this outfit now for a brief time, and I hope not for too much longer, is it's an astounding thing the way that one person can be that much a part of an institution so that her memory outlives her physical embodiment in it and stays a part of the everyday life of that institution. I've had some wonderful colleagues in my life as a professional at FSU, and some of whom I admire very deeply. But it's not clear to me that there's anyone who continues to exert so much influence on the day-to-day operation of that department as Wendy does, even 4 years after her departure. So that's the first thing, to let you know the importance of this event tonight for the English department at FSU. The second one I wanted to mention has to do with the idea of passion. If you've been around an academic institution for a time, or really if you've been involved in any educational enterprise, you know that one of the corruptions of teaching is that it can become either a huge opportunity for the exercise of ego. One of my teachers once said, we all know secretly that the reason most of us went into this profession is we like to be up in front of people. It can become a huge opportunity for that exercise, but on the other hand, and equally problematic, it can become an opportunity for human beings to hide. The nature of teaching is one such that it can provide an occasion for students to be enticed, elicited, invited out and to be open by someone who stays hidden, him or herself. This is really one of the great dangers of the classroom situation, is that students can come to feel that they are the only ones who are exposed by this body of work, by this body of discussion that takes place. One of the things that I noticed when I first arrived at FSU, certainly within about 3 years, as I say, Wendy and I arrived at almost the same time, was that Wendy became a kind of department in herself. There was a strange way in which students gathered to Wendy in ways that her colleagues could not really comprehend. It was as if Wendy represented a kind of clarity and sort of direction that in general students were hungry for and did not find everywhere they went in the curriculum. There was very much the sense that with Wendy, what you encountered in her work was not her ego, but her life. And this was an astounding thing, that she was prepared to expose that through her teaching in a way that was not a display of ego, it was not a dominating activity, but it had to do with something about allowing herself to be exposed in this interaction where others expose themselves. And this was a remarkable quality about her, and it gathered students to her, it gathered a kind of authority to her that had nothing to do with any kind of bombast or theatrical stance up in front of people. It was an extraordinary quality that I have to say often seemed quite mysterious to the rest of us who were in the department with her as we saw this kind of this magnetism that was generated. The last thing I'll say is the most personal memory I have about my the 18 years I've shared in the English department with Wendy, and it has to do with the idea of silence. when Wendy and I first arrived, Wendy made a real overture to try to include my work in some of her work, and she included an essay of mine in one of her books, and invited me to participate in some collaborative activities with her. And one thing that I remember very clearly was about my third or fourth year at FSU. She invited me to sit in on a class in which I think the class was dealing with some topic, or maybe something, it might have been something I wrote, I can't recall, but she and I taught the class together. And I've never really gotten this impression out of my mind. She had the most powerful silence I've ever seen in my life. And it was an amazing ability to withhold herself in a way that did not seem coy or evasive, a kind of supportive waiting for others, giving them the space that they needed, and it created a quality in the classroom and in the discussion really unlike anything I had quite ever seen. I will tell you, as another professor, somebody with a lot of experience in that room with her, there were moments that I found it frankly unnerving. There was an ability to wait, to rest within herself, to know that the time in which to speak would come, and to create that room as a place in which ideas would emerge. All of this suggests to me that Wendy was a person of extraordinary commitment, someone capable of providing leadership and energy, and people immediately followed her in a way that lasts for an awful long time. So, on behalf of the English department, I want to say to you that we feel very privileged that she was part of us and shaped us for as long as she did. And this gathering tonight is very much a fitting remembrance for us of the importance of this person in our life. So thank you all for coming. Thank you, and thanks for
Dean's going to come up, and he has a ton of thanks and a ton of people to thank and stuff like that. But Dean is probably my oldest friend in town. You know, somebody I've known longer than anybody else. And when Wendy died and we talked, and I wanted to do a book as a gift for Dean. And then, of course, it turned out that the book was, this beautiful, wonderful book, and it was a gift for all of us. It was what I could do, but it was, absolutely secondary to how good and beautiful the book is. So here's Dean Moon.
I am so happy to see you all here. Thank you so much. I am Wendy's husband. That's my entire resume. And I will add to what Ralph said. She also made me very happy. And here it is. And I was so glad, and he would print enough copies for y'all to have one too. And if any of you are thinking that this is Wendy's last book, think again. I have enough poems to do probably 2 more this thing. I was overwhelmed with poems. But she also has 2 poems coming out in the Tampa Review in an upcoming issue. I just received today the Hawaii Pacific Review's Best of the Decade album. It includes Wendy and Rick Campbell. Off in the netherworld somewhere, people are working on a book right now about Wendy's influence on the rhetoric and composition field. And hopefully that'll come out too, but I wouldn't count on it being the last book. Wendy said more than one time, I heard her say, and in several genres, because I've read it several places, that you give the gift you most want to receive. So this book is mine to her. Though she did all the work, and she would have gotten this book published on her own eventually. 2 times runner-up for a National Book Award, National Poetry Book Award. It would have happened eventually. But I've worked to get this done for 3 years now because she wanted it. do. And in this book is the gift I most want. I just am really thankful to him for doing this for us. I really need to thank Ann Hang the board for believing in the project, the English department and Ralph Berry specifically for helping out so much with this event, and the Council on Culture and Arts for the grant in support of Wendy's work. Rick Campbell, my good friend, as he told you, who likes to drop by my place at Alligator Point and scare the fish away for a few days. Especially deserves my thanks. Rick helped me find some course through this ocean of poetry that I unleashed when I opened her hard drive. But with his help, I began to read and to pare down, and it took a long time. It was some days I couldn't read but one or two before I had to stop. Not an easy task, and some days much harder than others. It went on for months until I just couldn't stand it anymore. I couldn't cut another poem, but it was still too fat. So I feel like this book was guided from the beginning, and something guided me to Laura Newton. And Laura enlisted the help of Jane Springer, another, I believe she was guided to Jane Springer also. Bless those two for what they did. They made tough decisions that I just couldn't make anymore. They molded the final form and made it whole. And once things got rolling, it really seemed to be moving along as it guided, and it was guided certainly by the collective will of the people involved who really wanted this book to happen. But Wendy was guiding us too. We all certainly had our minds on her through the whole process, and her voice is so clear in this poetry. It is very much like listening to her. The finalized manuscript went to Lynn Knight next, and I can't thank her enough for the work that she did on this book. I believe she was perfect at every turn. Her ideas were always exactly what I thought Wendy would want. Lynn knew her well too. She was one of the group of writers who met with Wendy the Black Dog here in town. And when Lynn asked me about cover ideas, I knew for sure that Wendy wanted a Lynn Hall. No doubt about that. She talked about it all the time, about a book with a Lynn Hall cover. And her big worry was being able to choose one, because she loved every media that Linda used. When I asked Linda, she suggested the quilt that is the cover. And I have no idea how Lynn and Linda were going to translate this quilt into a book cover, but I knew it was right. I knew it was perfect. And as you can see, Linda and Lynn did a great job. And it is beautiful. And I love it, and I know Wendy does too. Be sure to read about the quilt in the front matter. There's a little bit about where that quilt comes from. And if you can wangle an invitation to Linda's house, she'll show it to you in person, and it's even more impressive in person. I know Wendy also wants me to thank all the people going back over 25 years who read these poems in their early forms, and all the workshops and writers groups and friendships from California to Africa, Arizona to Alaska, and thankfully Tallahassee and Alligator Point. Many of those writers are in the house tonight. Many are going to be reading. So, Wendy and I say thanks. I also need to thank Catherine Haight, who was the first person I talked about getting book of poems published posthumously. I had no idea where to begin. She couldn't be here tonight, but I know she's with us in California right now, reading a few poems. She sent me an email. She was Wendy's longest held and dearest friendship. And while she told me it was hard for her because it felt like acknowledging the truth of something that she could not accept, she read the manuscript. And after bouncing a few emails back and forth with Laura Newton, wrote a beautiful introduction to the book. I also need to thank the photographer who took this, my favorite photo of Wendy on the back. And we used it for the back cover. It's Tate Pollard, Wendy's son. He's now enrolled, this is to bring everybody up on the kids, because they're going to hear a lot. He's now enrolled at the University of Florida studying computer engineering. He's a whiz, we don't know what he would be, even though he's become a total gator. I know Wendy's so proud of him and the man he's becoming. I am too. I'm so glad you joined families and you got lots of brothers and an extra sister and a spare dad. Tonight we're here to launch the book, to celebrate Wendy's poetry, to listen to some of Wendy's friends and family read her work. I'm going to start off with two myself. The first one is one Wendy wrote after a visit to Linda Hall's studio. Linda wasn't there, so she used to let me use her studio to plug in amplifiers and wail on guitars. And one day Wendy and I went there and to pick up my stuff, and Wendy was wandering around the studio, and this poem came out of it. It's called A Heart with Eyes, An Empty Dress, A Boat Made of Dirt, for L.H. She cuts crow photographs from magazines, not for presence, but for absence, for their black shapes speaking from darkness without judging darkness. Feathers highlighted in Hades with blues, greens, and purples. Crows smaller than ravens, ravens larger than crows, both keen-eyed and voluble, tumble into a portfolio, knock each other about, arrive on canvas like pleasing whispers of madness. Constructive work to be done, church sculpted from cow skin, embroidered heart filled with gray hair. Each installation awaits incarnation, ghost dress above a boat made of dirt, cloth wrapped cats, and black silhouette on black silhouette. Glossy magazine broken open at table shows how one bird made a riotous snow angel. Traces of feathers etched into snow dust. Presence in absence. Rude inspiration as crow flapped away. Buoyant, shrieking. I wish they would let people have water in here. This next poem is an epithalamium. I had to look it up. It's a poem written in honor of a marriage. Normally, I believe it's written by probably a guest or an honored family member who can write poetry or can't write poetry. Wendy wrote ours, or our marriage, and it's called A Peace and Peace, an epithalamium. I hadn't expected to find it here where my fingers feather your wrist in the quiet after work. When I walk through a city you don't know and tell reflecting windows and outdoor planters covered in first snow all my easy secrets, and the impossibility of phone calls, how to say the same thing again. Again is a poet's task, each time more passionate against the cold shoulders of cliche, each time more accurate if measured richly as fabric unrolls from bolt in organic yards the length of an embrace. How many years it has taken to arrive at this place, counting out loud appreciations room to room. Cat takes off to blaze her way into the sunniest afternoon. Dog curls around green chair rungs and smiles for our attention in her dependable way. Let the wide white blades of the ceiling fan above this marriage bed mix all the air for us that they can. We'll share it, at rest, and never feel done. Thank you. As Rick said, we're going to let the readers introduce themselves, except for this first reader. I want to introduce the first reader. It's Wendy's daughter, Morgan. She's one of my daughters, too. She's finishing her master's degree in social work this semester, doing an internship in the Pediatric Pulmonary Center at Shannon's Hospital in Gainesville, because she loves children, because she's kind and generous and so smart and very much a hummingbird. Morgan.
Although my best friend goes there, my brother, so I put up with the orchard blues for semester. I'm reading The Way I Remember. When he drops an egg into the enamel pool, my son pauses with clear-eyed precision, asks about the cloudy cord between the yolk and white, then pours in corn oil and whisks left-handedly at this home remedy for the dog's dry winter coat. It's just how eggs are, I say, keeping myself busy in the dawn of a new year. Miss Proby, in elementary, gave my older sister Linda 2 Banty hens, left over from an improbable class project. They lived in a box nest, laid brown eggs the size of my 5-year-old fist. When she cracked eggs into the frying pan, I heard Linda's certainty, a sound I was raised with, determined and solid. My stomach lurched as she ate, for I thought, almost a chicken, as that incomprehensible word, unfertilized, faded. I came to eggs more slowly, an omelet and garnish, sausages hanging from dark rafters, backpack left with any German fluency by the fall of damp front door. Amid smoke and beer stains, I look across a rabbit-skiller table at my golden-haired young man, wondering how I had gotten there. Omelet, oil at the edge is taste. Eggs branded with their lace of brown on yellow, sliding into me like a handkerchief waves at the bravely gullible. My daughter constructs egg salad, sits on the high stool at the kitchen counter, dipping into it by spoonfuls. Hormones transfer her into someone I can and can't quite recognize. Part me, part my sister, but mostly herself, with egg-smooth hands nearly the size of mine. Like her hands, the house painted eggshell white is the color of the unbleached duvet cover on the new down quilt on the bed where I waited often this winter. Oil and vinegar, I said to you at the last. But we don't mix, but we made a good undressing. The dog is a poised black question mark. My son's fork finishes its manic tattoo, egg and oil blended into a healthy tempura, good enough to bind pigment to canvas. Surely this will lost her coat. He goes to her corner, sets the dish out, white and yolk broken and folded, each into each. She follows with interest, and with the dog's simple insight, laps it all down quickly.
I brought my poem with me. I am Judy. My last name is Zinn. It was Bishop once. I'm Wendy's oldest sister. And our sisters, Nancy and Linda, who both live in Washington State, regretfully could not be here for this event. But I'm very happy to represent them. And I'm very happy also that our favorite, Uncle Bill Bishop, is here to represent the Bishop family. Very grateful to Dean and to all those who helped Dean make this event possible. When my husband Harris and I got married, Wendy was only 8 years old. And she had pigtails. But all through our lives, as we grew older, she and I became closer, even though we never could live close to each other as adults. In late spring of 2003, I decided to train for a marathon through the Team and Training Program of Leukemia Society. I did it because I wanted to get healthier, and I thought it was a good cause. And I started in the spring to work on being ready for this event, which is going to happen on Labor Day. That August, I learned that Wendy had leukemia. And I think that's an unspeakable irony. I was able to complete the race and collect $12,000 for the Leukemia Society. But I never expected to run the race for my baby sister. It's an honor to be here with all of you who know her so well and in so many ways. And I'm happy to be able to read the wedding barn poem because it's a very meaningful poem for our family, the Zinn family. We are lucky enough to have a beautiful farm in northeast Pennsylvania for close to 40 years. Our 3 children were preschoolers when we first acquired it. The Zinn family farm is important to us and our children as adults, and we all cherish the time we spend there. When our daughter Darcy was to be married in 1998, she wanted her wedding to take place there. So we planned a beautiful country wedding, which is always a little risky being outdoors in September, but it worked out fine. And Wendy and Morgan and Tate were going to be there with us. And I asked Wendy very close to the date of the wedding if she would mind writing a poem for me. And she said she would. And she was also willing to read it at the wedding. I was amazed. The reason I mentioned it was close to the event, I was amazed at how quickly she created this poem and how beautiful it was and how it captured the day. Those of you who work with her in your field probably all can create things out of whole cloth on a double back. This really impressed me. It really captured the day because we had the wedding in an old barn, and it was festooned with white Japanese lanterns, and there was a string quartet playing, and you'll see the word quartet in the poem. There were many other things about the day. It was a beautiful September day, and the best thing was there were no flies, so everybody could really relax and not worry about the bugs. I'm reading the poem from a signed copy that she sent to us a few months later, along with some family photos. For Darcy and Sebastian in the wedding barn. Zinn Farm, 12 September 1998. There are only a few things we could tell you by dropping them into this champagne fruit afternoon that tapers toward the end of September. Wisdom, we might point out, accumulates in small events. When wide-mouthed bass nibble at water's surface. When deer glide down slope to watch a family perform its private ceremonies. When bats glint in corridors of pine and fir, while rabbits tease each other toward the edges of the lake of evening. Cleared month after month, like a child's slate, the moon's familiar face encourages you to forgive and forget what matters least, to make room for the moments that hold you together. Rebirths, journeys, the promises of seasons, each a translation, each a transformation. As you learn how generation speaks to generation and the sure lines of lineage, here centuries communicate one to the other as the stars with Earth, we would remind you, most often, simply to listen. When your lover takes your hand, when winds rise in storms, when warnings seem to hold back and tempt you to rush forward too quickly, wait and consider why you came here, up the grassy slopes of expectations into the hotter flames of appetite, which fill each dancing moment, kindled and rekindled with the energy you give back to it. Never forget how the quartet of contentment, generosity, passion, kindness, courage, performed all day long, how your guests held smiles up like little mirrors and reflected the rightness of your affections. Before life's glass is completely full, harvested, seasoned, poured, and savored, recall the time you spent here, as rich as the ceremonious dust motes. When you return in such a way, you'll discover what you have saved, what is left, what is best in all you have done. Each anniversary asks that you slide back large wooden doors so light falls onto the foundations and barn swallows sketch their greetings across the consecrated landscape of your hearts.
Short that if I got behind the podium, it would be like reading in a box. I'm going to read one called My Children Help Me Cut My Hair. Wendy would say that she didn't have a sense of style, but she did. She was not only a beautiful woman, she had this classic 70s, early 70s sense of style, which was kind of anti-style, or an ambivalence about this thing that our culture calls style. And I think that comes through in the poem. And wry sense of humor about his mom. My children help me cut my hair. My son goes first, talks up his normal informational storm in a far room, while she trims his growing out surfer cut. On the hair cutter's couch, my daughter worries about feathering or not feathering long blonde hair, having teased her 16-year-old boyfriend on the phone until he learns to warn her not to cut hers short. I page through magazines of zombie women, scan the fake makeovers, I think, pineapples, or chow dogs, artichokes, ferrets' nests, all alien tinted. None of them wear glasses. The day before, in the big tin tire store, getting a tire patched in the super suds, getting a truck wash, in Walmart purchasing endless sundries, I stared at every head of hair, thought, why do we have hair? Decided, cut, change, do something. Discouraged amid celebrity magazines' waif young starlets, I decided on one, celebrated, shaggy but wry, walked back to the cutting room and asked, can you make me look like her? Joke and not joke. Desire is coin here. The hair cutter swallows her sweet, incredulous smile, like it's clotted cream and she, a sun-fed window cat. We can try. My daughter returns to life, feeling for the lost quarter inch. My turn. First snip, second snip, long inches. Bored, book in hand, my son wanders in, says, oh my God. Doesn't remember me so in his short 13 years. Gets excited, nervous. Honks forth with a bottom-feeding teen's giggle. Oh my God, rattles on a sealed door in the old house. Ejects 3 new blades from a dispenser, so I scold him on his way. Intention, to stampede his sister into a tension-reducing fight. We hear him retreat and repeat the diminishing echo of, my God. Done. Hair apostrophes on the floor. Dark rooms. My daughter says it looks like a duck's butt. My son says, oh my God. What will Dean say? Because he doesn't know what to say. My daughter defends, deflates. Be quiet, it looks great. The hair cutter hands me my glasses, gasps, I love it, what do you think? She leans closer. I can't see, I say, you're in the mirror. The back of my head feels like a duck's butt. My hand pets feathers, chin lifts. I smile, rise, walk, trip once on the uneven floors. Tip well. I sail forth, trailed by my squabbling goslings, whose attention has now drifted elsewhere.
Hey, I'm Michael Trammell, and I want to say I really enjoyed Mary Jane's capturing of the haircutting poem, not only because it was a great reading, but also because Mary Jane's my wife.
Yes,
Always praise that, praise her work. She and I are both business writing professors over at College of Business, but we were both students at Wendy's, the English department, back in the 90s. And I really wanted to bring up Wendy's generosity of spirit. Really very unique in a lot of ways. I mean, generous in one way because she had all these groups with her students poetry groups and a nonfiction group that Mary Jane and I were both in that she hosted at her house. We sat by the pools on Sunday afternoons, read essays, and talked about it. It was a great experience. But also her generosity of spirit as a professional, as a teacher. I think this is something we all struggle with as a teacher, is you try to project yourself as honestly as possible, but a lot of times you feel like you're sending a slice of yourself to students, kind of a persona. And with Wendy, it always felt like you were getting everything, the whole complete spirit. I kind of reached for that as a goal myself, and I know I fall short a lot. Whether it was in the classroom with Wendy or in the office talking to her at her house, you always felt that Wendy was being real. Her whole self was there for something. Not for something, there, real. So. Another aspect of her generosity of spirit has to deal with a little line in the intro about me that I'm Dean's surfing buddy, Dean's colleague in surfing. And this connects back with Wendy, because Dean and I used to talk about, we need to go on some surfing trips out to Jacksonville. And I had this little, smallish Jeep. Old guys who surface longboards, it's easier now. And then we had this big, nice, new Suburban. And we thought, well, we could just slide longboards in there so easily, it wouldn't be a headache. We were kind of nervous about asking her. Should we ask her? That's not. So we asked her, without hesitation, she said yes, of course. Of course you can take my Suburban and go off surfing for a couple of days in Jacksonville, no problem. Again, her generosity spirit is captured in every occasion, every kind of way. So I guess connecting a little bit with the surfing theme, I'm going to read The Water's Night here on page 220. It starts off with a little epigraph by Pablo Neruda. You are sad, all at once, like a voyage. Waiting as you turn in sleep, thinking, ankles in water, days spent dredging the shore, heat burning away from the outer skin, waiting for you to wake. Even now I remember the rhymes of old, waves and feel like a high cliff. Even now I am pushing a boat across a sea as large as the wide brown Amazon. Once you asked me, doesn't it seem crazy that we all die? I am not surprised at a gull with feathers of sun, at a whale with fins of water, at a ship with a hull of souls, or a raft of dreams pulled on by dolphins. I am not surprised by death. Here in the exact center of our world, on this wide beach, in this velvet water, I dive and hear voices. Bubbles break around my haloing hair. The circles of the world look simple underwater. The face of death looks like a song. Underwater you can cry and go unnoticed and swim back greedily toward the black sand beaches. I am not surprised. Sleep is the color of water, your face the color of seas. I gather messages and spin out weeds. Shells pile around my ears, and every time you stray farther into your sleep, I turn, count strands of current, and float until dawn.
Wendy was my teacher and my mentor. I'm going to read 2 poems. A short one. How does a poem start? This one has an epigraph. At the beginning of each picture, there is someone who works with me. Toward the end, I have the impression of having worked without a collaborator. Christian Zerbost, from A Conversation with Picasso. I thought I saw you over my left shoulder, out the study window, down the centipede grass lawn, just brushed on the forehead by the cabbage palm fronds. As I counted out syllables on my lips, I was sure your lips moved. You waved as I turned a line and jammed myself into the evening. For I can sit working as long as the city sleeps and stars float like separate spy holes in the sky's humidity. Deciding there is a door for each star. I open each to see what is really just outside this picture. And only after such euphoria do I notice that you are gone. The next one I'm going to read is called Inside Out. It's a little bit in the same vein as the one here. Today I blazed through town, my pastel striped V-neck t-shirt inside out. Neck tags covered by cinnaberry red, hastily washed hair, seams showing around the shoulders and down my yellow aqua coral dun striped sides. At the animal aid clinic, no one noticed. The dogs attended to their own bristly business. Cats moaned from a line of plastic pet taxis and stared malevolently clear through. Picking up mail from the office mailroom, why, I felt no wilder than usual. A student looked sideways at her tattered bulletin board notices. The receptionist made small talk about travel and weather, neglected to say, Dr. Bishop, about your shirt. Sunglasses misplaced already that morning, I knew my head wasn't on right. Because I live inside that head and not in the mirror's glare, my signaled sense of absence must have added to everyone's silence and that feeling of one leg less firmly planted. Like the day I wore tennis shoes from 2 different pairs. Stared down at unaligned logos. Like the day I didn't zip my fly, and the Christian young man from the back row made a sweet effort to whisper me into sensibility by handing in papers that didn't need handing in. Close enough to say so. Think of reversals in dreams, the symbolism in lecturing naked, or arriving at the mall unbuttoned or undone. At the public library, did the beribboned volunteer think I meant this as my fashion statement? Or did she consider me a variant on the slowly moving unhoused who wait for the tall glass doors to open each day? Or just didn't see me as me, someone who wears her clothes generally the right way? Like the crepe-skinned woman at the roadside antique store who was concerned with the way the local paper had changed its format again. Did I agree? Well, I did and I didn't. In the truck, I buckled my seatbelt to drive the last leg, to drive to the Gulf Coast, buckled for the 5th time, and suddenly saw my own seams. This can be dealt with, I thought in shy woman panic. Maybe apologies, maybe a poem. Where the mirage-filled road curves toward the beaches, I hit my blinker, slowed onto sand, and watched the rear views. I stripped for no one. A quick olay of cotton cloth, while hot spring air pressed seductively against the windshield. Then my t-shirt settled around me, a safe second skin, a cloak of renewed good citizenship. The rightly clothed. Oh, how simple to be eccentric, and how easy this way to be saved. I straightened my shoulders then and drove into a revealing red sun April sunset.
I'm Linda Williams, and I'm Wendy's friend. I'm struck by, as everyone steps to the microphone, how we're all essentially saying, hi, my name is blank, and I love Wendy. It sounds a lot like an AA meeting, except none of us are trying to quit. Storm for Morgan. I walk outside into the applause of the palm trees. Wind we rarely have is as warm as the dog's breath and just as jumpy. I skip into the night, leave behind your careful observation. You're laughing because you're sad. And I answered, I'm still sad, but I'm really laughing. Your dad, his girlfriend are eating grouper and spinach soup, and I'm signing you up for soccer and dancing, wild, dumb dancing with you, your brother, to an old Talking Heads song on your teenager's radio station. This is my life, I told the clouds, massed behind the neighbor's house this evening when we ran outside to gape at the billowing sunset. That one's Mount Shasta, you said, and I said, that one's Mount Lassen, though we had left them miles behind on our summer vacation. I don't walk too far, my arms windmilling and stretching into the warm, tropical, deep night air before I feel the first drop fall. The dog scents into late summer grasses, so green they're blacker than the night, these last weeks of August heat. Then another drop. We continue, trot, walk the hot smell of rural asphalt, blotting up first water like tears. I snort at the dog like a wild horse. I freeze like a deer in the brights of some car coming down a cross street. I wave my crazy fronds, and the rain grows thicker, and my tennis shoes squeak out the storm, steady, colder, downpour now. I'm filled with electrical tension, like the usual lightning that struck, unmoving, in darkness to the south. Since it's missing, I walk further than it might. I hoot for the owl, let the dog pull me along like a bat on a leash. She's sure she can outrun these waters. Sins have turned so heavy, we wick the midnight in, then shake ourselves into the silent, waiting, sleeping house. Good images for me. Preteen. I sit on my daughter's bed where sun cuts like a breastbone across her dust of shoes, fancy soap, book and beads, rank tossed sheets, where she rests each night on 10 years' growth of bears, a bat, tiger, pig, possum, lumpy, fur-covered bed of nails, and demands another hug or pushes away from my bending sweep to straighten her corn straws of hair and snail tracks of saliva, where she curls like the cat who scratches slowly under one ear, one leg, looks at her with his dark, wide eyes, and she looks back, blinks, goes out like the light. As I struck electricity from his tortoise hairs, tell him, let's always remember this.
I don't have a program to but I'm here now. I'm Joanne Gardner, and I'm not sure what tense to use. I am or was a colleague of Wendy's. And I actually, shortly before she left on medical leave, she got a new office. And I inherited her old office. And so when Ralph talks about the silences and the presences, I'm one who's particularly sensitive to that. Everything was gone from the office. I think Dean cleaned it out. I'm not quite sure. Everything was gone except for there was 2 books of poetry in the light system overhead. And a lot of nails on the walls. So being ignorant, I took the books down and started reading them, and then I realized that she had them stuffed up there because when the heat goes on, everything rattles. I did that. Well, there it is. And the nails, I sat and I looked at the nails and I said, well, maybe I should, but in the end I decided that I shouldn't remove them because I thought, sure, this is where Wendy hung all of her awards. And so now I can just sit and look at the awards and hope for better things in my life. So, I'm really pleased to be here. I didn't mean to tell this whole story, but I'm trying to create a context for myself. I'm also associated with Anhinga Press, and this is significant because the poem I want to read has an Anhinga in it, and it's one of the best Anhinga poems I've I've seen Sir Rick wherever you are. You know, we put together that anthology of poems that had Anhingas in it. This one. It's called From a Bottle. Consider the beautiful black thoughts of an Anhinga bird, wandering from estuary onto this wide gray belly of Gulf water. Or the blue heron, elegant as chopsticks. She broods with awful fastidiousness while seaweed-filled waves knit anklets out of cross currents. Warm air holds down this thought. Warmer water buoys up beneath it. At shoreline, this small glass raft nudges coquina. They dig into sand with a bubbling gasp of group thought. Get away or come away, the message hardly matters. Water edges in like a hermit crab, soaks ink from the wafers of paper I've written on. In ceremonious collusion, I experience that Davy Jones's locker feeling, cast ideas forward just before napping, captive through the late afternoon. Then, summer dusk in a bedspread of darkness drops down like a center's net, and Hinga and heron lift eagerly, cumbersomely into their last second escape. Tomorrow, dawn will pour into the narrow neck, and these sentences will whisper out with the waterbird's comfortable hunger.
Hi, I'm Laura Newton. We talked about Wendy's generosity. I think there are a lot of people in the room who have publications because Wendy invited you to contribute a chapter to a book she was putting together. One of the ways she was generous. I think that being a student of hers changed the way I teach forever because she was so generous in the classroom. It was a really wonderful model. One of the ways that Wendy was generous to me is strange and wonderful, is that Wendy had a student who was an undergraduate who went away to another school to get a master's degree and came back for a PhD program because she just wanted to be around Wendy. And that student came back and met my son and became my daughter-in-law. So Wendy gave me Amy, which was just so very cool. So I'm going to read the title poem for the book, My Last Door, after a Georgia O'Keeffe painting of that title. Let my last door open into the light. Let me start over. Let my last door open into the light of late spring. May it be shadowed with the announcements of those who walked into darkness before me. Right foot disappearing first, body leaning into the unknown, trailing hand making mostly mysterious gestures, I'm all right, or come along, it's what I thought, or it's not what I thought. If my last door does not accept spring, I'll offer a false stark light on the hand-hewn wood lintel where abstract snowfall cast cool gray shadows. Let my last door be a familiar shape, but slightly reworked, perhaps an entrance, perhaps an exit, its pattern fabricated as words are fabricated, to let me explore the shoulder-wide rectangle of experience I claim as my life. Let me walk up close and peer in long. Let me decide I don't need to look. Let me stay where I am a while longer in my small corner of the courtyard, intent on giving pleasures as fast as I take pleasure in this dusty sunlight. Let a star shine through my last door. Let me ride above the clouds and know somewhere below my last door is waiting, as someone beyond the door is waiting. Let my animals, children and friends pour their lives across the paving stones I cross to find my last door. Let the flowers lay themselves down if they wish beside my plain and simple door. Petals will glow like a color wheel, and the scent of honeysuckle, rose, and orange blossom will provide the toll of any crossing. Through the last door, may my lover and I hold hands as long as we care to, as long as we can, neither sure which side the other is on, nor unaware of when or where each of us has gone. Let my last door be the one I choose to call my last. Let me not go back on my words, but accept them when they arrive to greet me. Let every bird I have ever admired, like the mockingbird and sassy stellar jay, the anhinga and rare quetzal, contribute to the happy, indifferent cacophony from a perch above my last door. Let me hang my worst impulses on a sliver of moon and sail it into the sky. Let the bony skull of my urgencies rise like the sun over high walls before I approach. Let me regret and accept, yet still turn onto the pathway toward this, my last door. There is no curtain on my last door. There is no space to stand in or on. My last door will be neither wood nor wall, neither all I imagine, nor less than I can comprehend. My last door must be imagined now, so that all the days it takes me to find it, to figure it, to fashion it, are given over to its attention, its understanding, and its praise.
My name is Mike Riffick, and I'm a good friend of Dean's, and a big fan of Wendy's work as a writer, and as a teacher, and as a mother, and as a friend to all of you. And as a writer, the poem I'm going to read, I love the powerful connection that Wendy makes in this poem about how the madness and the righteousness so often join forces in the artistic pursuit of wrestling some wild image or phrase, or as she says, word mantra onto the written page. This poem also reminds me of my own fragile role as a high school teacher, attempting to share with young people in this Just Say No public school system about the opium dreamscape of Edgar Allan Poe or Samuel Taylor Coleridge, or the free-range ramblings of Jack Kerouac, or the demonized life of Sylvia Plath. It's also very befitting how Wendy's poem offers a quiet tribute and a brief nod to the barroom as a bastion for upholding an ancient tradition of high and low art. A place where storytellers still gather to share the exquisite effect that the oral tradition has on we, the readers, the writers, and of course, the listeners. This is the image that Wendy leaves us with in her beautiful poem, Tradition and the Individual Talents. Tradition and the individual talents. Inevitably, all students of poetry write prose, while aiming for their fix of holy fire. So I scramble the letters and add to them rugs and shrugs and dugs and drudge, to show how much words may mean, how stories can be unpacked and repacked in a denotation of connotation. Suggests that fuck guitar is somewhere all of us have been. Heads dizzied down on a rough wooden counter. That's why the older poets place themselves ritually in ovens and institutions. Because the life of the mind will always find escape as poetry goes urgently into each bad night of orchestrated readings and correctly angled beer mugs. While the middle-aged move from aspirin through Xanax, collect wine-rich Rivieras, compile verse about paintings and saints fading from the walls of history, compound their interest with been theres and done that's, when it's word mantras that matter. Gush, shred, drags, dodge, in the rich silences between rhyme and free, a faraway look on each generational phase.
Hi, I'm Kim Hayes-Corn, and Wendy was my friend, my teacher, my mentor. And there's not a day that I go into the classroom that she's not there with me. I chose this poem because I think we share a mutual inspiration, the beach, and the shells and the dolphins. And she said she was going to get her beach house when she came down and visited us. And my gosh, she did it. So I'm going to read Gulf Shells. Lost my page number here. There we go. Gulf shells form sand dunes when their hearts break, hold firm lips together in muscular kisses, until one midnight moonlight seduces them and the lodgers slip out. Gulf shells wink at children in sunlight, frustrate fussy gulls, hold hors d'oeuvres, memories, grit or pearls, outline shower curtains and towels and chic catalogs. Gulf shells define a beach I'm on my way to. They cut and cleave, clutter the shoreline as they please, exhibit the lines water wears, salty markers of my wet and windy age.
I don't have a program either. I was a friend, and Wendy was my mentor and an intimate part of my everyday teaching life for 15 years. I used 13 ways of looking for a poem, Wendy's book about writing poetry, and that's where I first saw Gardenia, which is the poem I'm going to read to you. But I do want to read to you in Wendy's words how she wrote Gardenia. Early each summer in Florida, where I now live, the gardenia bushes outside my bedroom windows bloom. Their strong scent wafting into the house. About that time of the year, I'm teaching summer school, and we're working on concrete detail in our poems to do primary observational research on the natural world. So I fill a brown paper bag full of rain-wet gardenias and take them into the classroom, placing one on each desk. The dusty institutional room fills with gardenia perfume, and we each write about our gardenia. The prompts I use have developed from my desire to push writers to look and look again at the actual plant. I'm going to skip down here. I accompany the gardenia exercise with a picture from an illustrated dictionary that a poetry student gave me one year at the end of class. I encourage students to do similar secondary research as they revise. The poet, I believe, does not simply try to paint a word picture, but also explores, learns, studies, refracts, and reflects a new vision of a common human experience. Gardenia. 11 white petals, the shape of flattened baseball bats. White turning brown edges curled back. Sexual parts looking like an upside-down spider. 5 tawny stamen legs waving toward this lonely, light yellow, banana-shaped pistil. Meaty green leaves in lily pad layerings, but not in lily pad sizes. Formed like citrus leaves, but a deeper, glossy green. A white yeast infection, thick scent, like heaven gone bad. A bottle of Poulet Blanc, a musty secret, something kept moist for ages, edges blurring back toward raw earth. A sky on the 4th of July, heavy humidity expected, in fact, invited. The secret of all indulgence, overkill and destruction, and the draw of the same. Like a funeral and a birth, This is an occasion, a moment waited for that arrives too large, too big, too fast, like fantasies, like expensive and undercooked meats, like guilt, glut, sin, but squat, not roses on their imperious high-heeled stalks, not snapdragons frivolous and blown in the winds. When a girl first feels her hips touch her palms at night without asking. When a girl first pushes cotton sheets out of the bottom of the tightly tucked bed. When a girl first eats her own tears and likes them, too sweet, too light to lunch on, for long yet irresistible. When a girl first passes her message from hand to hand, the gardenia is reinvented.
I'm Bonnie Renman. I told Dean I was pleased to be characterized as the goddess mother to Kate and Morgan. I promised never to tell any stories about them, what they did when they were little, and then I realized Wendy put it on their photo. I selected the poem Teaching the Trick-New Dogs, A Phrenologist's Dreams, because Hans and I appear in the first stanza. We were driving home after dinner out, and we two were in our red Miata. Morgan and Tate used to call it the Barbie car. And a few days later, Wendy emailed me the poem, and I told her I couldn't understand any of it except the first stanza. Driving through an overheated town behind the red sports cars, I see two silver heads of hair, one tonsured, one blowing like an angel's feathers, until motionless at stoplight, each feather falls. We all turn right, and my fingers curl around the leather cent of this eternal steering wheel. Sorry, I know what you're about the water. I'm given a jaw and trace its heart-bold curve, jutting bone beneath lively skin, strut to the skull's dome, ridge and hinge. My hands hurry on, hover in benediction, make soft passes above the lodestone brain, remembering once we lifted one out, wrinkled, walnut, labyrinth, erosion on a hillside of thought. I can craft continents on the shoreline your hair gives up to skin, drift tectonic across warm scalp, summer brown, braille of intentions. I try to understand the electricity of every thought. At my touch you turn, offering continents and continents. I strum my passion down, soft rain across the globe. I encounter a row of patients lined up, each in a conversation with themselves, in a fire hat, a hard hat, motorcycle, pip, and diving helmets. I tap with frustration across each shell, pry at smoothness and mine for secrets. Merry New Year, they chime out when touched. Outside, all the engines idle. Trading a card shark a lesson or two, I find his forehead full and tremulous underhand, knead the upper vertebrae, loop my indexes around frontal lobes. His hands, flat on the table, begin to move, deal a royal flush, pause, deal a full house. Two specialists, our fingers spark and smoke until we stop. There is nothing lonelier, this cavity full of space and memory. I rub my brow and ignore messages, distract myself with knees and elbows, miss each ear's pointy rim. There is no business like the present, no path to my closed door. I decide to take up stars in sextants, transgress a freeway margin, pass into some future with these rusty hands.
and I teach composition at Florida A&M University, which means Wendy Bishop is alive and well at Florida A&M as well. Wendy was my major professor, my mentor, my role model. She was my friend. I think she gave the best gift that a teacher can give because of what she taught, demonstrated, explored, and accomplished. How she lived and how she loved and how she encouraged and helped. I was always going, wow. And I think that there isn't very much of a bigger blessing you can have in your life than somebody who makes you go, wow. And Wendy is still making me go, wow. And I'm still saying thank you. The poem that I'm going to read is called This Time. Afternoon curls into a hedge of bright azaleas, white, pink, purple. The light flush at the under edge of fingernails. The blood blush beneath warm flesh. The sensitive insides of eyelids, closed against light for pure pleasure. I'm waiting for evening to unroll its velvety throat. That's where the new moon waits, her sly smile lodged deep within a honey stem of darkness. I'm taking notes. How carefully she rolls from new to full and back again, using all 28 days to think things over. This blue moon, I won't be blue. This time, I'm taking time, so that it fills my arms as hopefully as white blossoms fill hawthorns' willing, bringing hands. It's almost too easy. So I remember that too, and promise to make my last moon as round as a kiss and as elegant as a calla lily. But don't expect reverence. A bit of best friend, a bit of bald. She and I plan to link arms along the way and tell our tales. She will drum blood through small ear canals and leave me without breath on my last good day. Until then, when I stand to soak in her bliss, as the owl's waves of warm spring air she rides on, take my measure of how much I give. It's how much I'll make of this time.
I'm Sheila Ortiz-Taylor, friend and colleague with Wendy Bishop. I had my turn to join us when we were sharing his work. And not that one. One of the things I remember about Wendy was the day that we both turned up at school wearing jackets that were made out of blue denim material. And I concluded we were both trying to look respectable and transgressive all. And she looked at mine and she said, I really like your jacket. And she said, I like it better than mine. And then she said, I think we always like other people's jean jackets better than our own. And I was going through my closet the other day, weeding out my professional clothes because I have retired this year past. And I came to that jean jacket, and I put it on, and I stood in front of the mirror, and somehow it seemed a little smaller than And I looked at myself in the jacket, and I said, Wendy's jacket was better than So I'm going to read you a poem called 3 p.m., and I think it shows Wendy's ability to figure out human nature and what it is we all have in common. 3 p.m., how are we all at 3 p.m.? That seems to be the essence of this poem. 3 p.m., that hour when your earnest self meets your hopeful self. The hour that melts with sunlight and a faint scent of cocktails all over the stage. Hour of cards dropping from hands, awaking from set dreams, ones where you win, you float, you drive away care from the limits of the longest days. In that hour, sun cuts itself into parcels, drops through louvered windows. In that hour, clothes sink like flags to the floor, while custom beckons you to an evening of promises. Try waking. Try walking into the liquid traces of night where stars blot away these promises and fill your deck with raw flourish of persons just like you. Forged by siesta and recharged batteries of the afternoon, the way birds roost in leafy shadows and hold their chatter before any dawn.
And I was a friend of Wendy's, and I loved her naughty sense of humor, and I loved her assignments. She always had assignments, and I could just imagine when I chose autobiography, Wendy saying, go write a poem that's titled Autobiography that doesn't actually have you in it. That's why I chose this poem. Autobiography. My lives look like subway cars colliding along the rails in the dark. When electricity blows and passengers lean precariously forward, someone falls into someone's lap. A man with a suitcase lurches away from his safe handhold. The lady with the white purse laughs. My husbands meet in the back room in the TV glow. The game is the final inning. They jostle for remote control. They decide it is easier to be friends than to be with me. They take up viola and amphetamines, marijuana and go games, computers and credit cards. They share their wins. My children hold a family reunion on a soccer field. Get into the player's way, run with hot memories. Start shouting matches from the sideline to sideline. They stand face to face in exacting symmetry. They calm, you never, and you always, trail picnic trash of torn paper, of matches and apology. My lovers leave the house early, walk to the neighborhood in the dark. They head west but forget to wait for me. Those who stay lift the lid on the cauldron that reheats on the stove. My dogs howl in barbershop harmony. The cat stalks off. They have always known it would be this way. My sisters meet my lives in the corners of their municipalities. They say, really? And fine. My brothers arm wrestle my lives, waiting for surf on the Pacific Ocean, where they've gone to get away from their own lives. I should remind you, my lives are giving themselves a surprise birthday party. Everyone is invited.
I'm Jennifer Oway, and Dean was my student long before Wendy was my colleague. So I knew that his resume included that he was a brilliant student and a compassionate person. And one of the things I'm grateful to Wendy for that hasn't been mentioned is that she made Dean so happy. I'm going to read a poem called The Words We've Worked With This Week, which have to do with the renovating of the house. We saw Wendy and Dean renovating their house on Alligator Point, and now my husband and I are just about to head into that task ourselves. So, the words we've worked with this week include soffit and driveway, a gray ointment called Noalox that keeps the light bulb ends from freezing up in sockets. The electrician left it, his fingerprints in whorls on the plastic bottle. Dollies and Johnny Lift on the delivery truck, vinyl trim like confetti on Sandsburg beach grass alongside concrete bits chunked out with the old louvered windows, one pane shattered into summer knives across the back floor as the last of the wooden porch screens rip on passing ladders of 6, 8, or 12 feet. We've picked up lampshade finials, wrenches, stacked assorted trim, shoved a plebe toilet bowl from one spot to the next, waiting for the right-sized bolt hole drill bit. Whirlpool, Asco, Hunter, Amana, plastic brand names in bas-relief may survive salt-filled sea air. Caulk's useful, covers inevitable gaps between wall and window, tile and corner, its mending ability required for old cinder block resists new ideas. Electrical and phone cords in conduits. Construction's very own varicose veins. Work by Fred, Ron, Doug, Ben, by long-haired Jesse, by greyhound-sinewed molasses-tanned Billy, speckled with paint and drywall dust, their labor receipts on lined notebook paper when anyone locates a leaky Vic. GFIC receptacles. What we don't now know about hardware stores, we don't need to know. Couplers and swivels, baffles, plumber's putty, vents and fans, rings and sleeves, so many words for fitting in and shaping up. Primer to pilot light, standing scene to serendipity. Consider how one person passes this on to the next. Call Prescott's, call Jimmy. One job is well done, another done just barely, also Friday night's pay is earned. Gatorade left on sill, sunset out a well-shimmed window. It's hard to put down roots in sand, but with these words, we work to believe we can.
So much. I was in a writer's group, and one thing that was really funny is she was so naughty because she would come to us with these assignments and she'd say, okay, so next week when we all meet, we're all going to have written a terzinal or a ghazal. And we'd say, yeah. And she'd say, you know what that is? No. They were all really excited. And so I chose this poem because she was really playful. I'd come back from a poetry workshop one time and I'd said, the teacher said that I couldn't have any words ending in ing, and she said, well then I think we should all write poems for next week that have nothing but ing words in them. It was a lot of fun. And she's still present with me, so I'm finishing my dissertation and she's egging me on to keep writing. Eventually it'll come together, she promises. Okay, this poem is Omnivores, and it's on page 137 if you want to follow in your book. Omnivores. After being folded into his evening sleep, Tate, age 8, returns to our bedroom, says, we're undivorced, smiles. I take a fancy to these unexpected words. We are divorced, but trying again, living together, and I think, what if we all could everything? Undate the person who bored us, undo certain words, our affairs undone, no one hurt. Maybe you never almost died learning your allergy to wheat, still able to eat French bread, drink beer, or unmyopic, I could hold a camera to my eyes, see clearly at the steam room and beach. We're unrobbed, thief in Arequipa, slipping passport and money back into hip pocket on Cafe Chair. We ask my father to forgo his cancer, let him retire as planned, and drive an RV to see this warm, sleep-filled grandson who reminds me of him. Your mother, not stroke-bound for 5 years and gone, my mother an unsuicide, willing to face life in glistening Santa Barbara sunlight. If my untalkative heavy sister could be unfull, she might not take the family past to heart. I'd give a lot if my children had never heard my sharpest voice. Undivorced, I think, undead, unhurt, unsick. But what would be lost in this tremendous unwinding? My obsession with reading, your renewed interest in other foods, our need to have children? The blessing in beginning again, glad we've come through, married or not. Undivorced, I said to Tate. What an idea. Omnivore, he says, rebelliously from intent eyes. We're omnivores.
Carissa left her paycheck up here if anybody wants.
She's looking at alcohol.
So you have to go drink too, then. Well, I'm Rick Campbell again. Or still. I think, I was not Wendy's student. She was not my mentor. But as I said, Dean is my best friend. And so much of my house is, Dean built the gazebo, and Dean built the treehouse, and Dean fixed this, and Dean made the rain gutters stay up. And there's a story Dean might tell you of me and Wendy in the house that I won't do. But I thought another thing about Wendy that didn't get mentioned is that when the first time I met her, I think that Wendy did not suffer fools gladly. The first time I met her, she looked at me like I wasn't nearly as smart as I thought I was. So I drew back a little bit, and I thought, okay, well, I'm going to think before I talk. Which is probably not a bad lesson to learn. And well, I want to thank everybody for coming to Wendyfest. I want to thank Dean for allowing me to call it that. Neil Young at the Bob Dylan Madison Square Garden tribute concert. Neil Young finishes playing all on the Watchtower. And I want to thank you all for coming to Blogfest. I was going to say that. I'm going to close the reading with a really great poem that I was glad nobody else chose. And it's two things. It's on page 50 when you look in your book, but it's a sonnet, and it's one sentence. It's just, it's an amazing composition. And it has this really long title, It's Over Your Shoulder, The Hangnail Moon. I'm always a sucker for titles that are so long that they take up 2 lines in the table of contents. Published in a magazine looks like you got 2 poems.